In this video you will be shown how to run a rapid test for detecting Campylobacter from a boot swab. When conducting the test, it is important that appropriate personal protective equipment is available. A lab coat that should be worn at all times, and safety glasses used when running a test. A fresh pair of disposable gloves must be worn for each run for protection and to prevent contamination between boot swabs. The Campylobacter test is run on the Genie 2 instrument from OptiGene. A simple hot block incubator is also needed along with 2 pipettes and a setup block. The Campylobacter kit consists of a Campylobacter test strip, resuspension buffer, lysis tubes and a lysis buffer. Sample pots with disposable syringes are included if required. The Campylobacter test must be performed in a clean environment. Surfaces, equipment and PPE should be cleaned regularly. All waste should be properly bagged and disposed of. In order to reduce the chance of contamination between samples, the sample extraction step should take place away from the area where the test strip is prepared and run on the Genie 2. Unscrew the lid of the sample pot and remove the ball bearing. Fill the pot with water up to the black line. Carefully place the boot swab into the pot. Drop the ball bearing on top and screw the lid firmly back on. Holding the pot with 2 hands, shake vigorously for 10 seconds. Unscrew the red cap and connect the supplied disposable syringe. Pull the plunger until there is about 3 milliliters of fluid in the syringe. Then unscrew the syringe and screw the red cap back onto the pot. Place the pot into a waste container. Unscrew the lid from one of the lysis tubes and dispense about 1 milliliter of fluid into the tube from the syringe. Screw the lid back on and shake the tube for about 5 seconds. Place the tube back into the setup block. The hot block should be set to a temperature of 80 degrees and a hold time of 5 minutes. Transfer the lysis tube from the setup block to the hot block and press the start button. The time on the display will count down to 0 and the hot block will then beep. Remove the lysis tube from the hot block and return to the setup block to allow cooling for 5 minutes. While the tube is cooling, remove the Genie strip from the foil pouch and place into the setup block along with a tube of resuspension buffer and lysis buffer. Whilst holding the strip down, remove the clear seal film and dispose. Unscrew the lid from the tube containing the resuspension buffer and using a pipette, transfer 20 microliters into all 8 tubes of the Genie strip. Dispose of the resuspension tube. Unscrew the lid from the lysis buffer and next pipette 5 microliters into tubes 7 and 8. Tube 7 will act as a negative control whereas tube 8 will act as a positive. push the lids of tubes 7 and 8 to close. The lysis tube should have cooled and will be ready to use. Unscrew the lid of the lysis tube and pipette 5 microliters into one of the tubes of the genie strip. Then close the lid of the tube. This can be repeated for up to 5 more lysis tubes. A different pipette tip should be used for each lysis tube to avoid contamination or false results. Holding the genie strip at one end, gently flick the strip down to force all of the fluid into the bottom of the 8 tubes. Inspect the strip to make sure that this has been successful. Now open the lids of the Genie 2 instrument and insert the genie strip. This can only go in one way round. Then close the lid. Press the Campylobacter button on the touch screen and a pop-up window will appear. Select Block A or Block B or both depending on which one is being used. The run will now begin. By default the instruments show the recorded temperature of the selected block. This should increase rapidly to 65 degrees and then hold at this temperature. Press the amplification tab at the top of the screen to display the measured fluorescence that represents the quantity of amplified Campylobacter DNA. The positive control trace will start to increase rapidly around 10 minutes, and if it does not come up then the run will have failed. The negative control should remain around 0. Amplification of Campylobacter DNA in the 6 sample tubes will be seen by their traces increasing before the 30 minutes are up. For samples that have no Campylobacter present, the associated trace will not increase and should remain around 0. Once DNA amplification is complete, the instrument automatically advances to the annealing phase, which confirms the identity of the amplified product. Press the Anneal tab at the top of the screen. The test strip is heated to 98 degrees and this temperature is held for 1 minute before cooling very slowly. As the temperature reduces, single strands of DNA recombine to become double-stranded. When this happens, there is a rapid change in the fluorescence signal, seen as a peak in the traces on the graph. The temperature at which a peak is seen is characteristic of the specific DNA present in the tube, and this should be around 88 degrees for Campylobacter. The DNA segment amplified for the positive control has a different annealing temperature, which should be close to 90 degrees. The results table, which can be displayed by pressing the Results tab, shows each sample with the amplification time and annealing temperature. Here you can also see the displayed result, either positive or negative.